Hello. As you can see, I've built up quite a few 3D printed buildings. Some are older than others. This one, the Cafe de Normandie, is a recent one. But basically they're all waiting to be painted. I mean, this blue one, that goes back to the Holland project. So that's been waiting for ages, really. But basically, I'm going to tackle them all at once. So what I thought about doing is perhaps splitting this into a series, possibly a three-part series. So in the first part, what I'm going to try and tackle first is just getting them basically ready first. So one thing I have done is, I'm not sure it's necessary, but I always wash everything in case there's any chemicals or anything on it that's going to react with paint. So I've given them all a thorough wash. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving them a blast inside and out with some black primer. I mean, that's going to work okay for shadows and things like that, so that's not an issue. But anyway, as I say, it's going to be a series, so what I thought I'd do is break it down. So in this first part, what I'm going to focus on after I've primed them is working on the insides. So by that, what I mean is I'm going to look at painting some of the walls with windows on the inside. Obviously, I'll leave all the detail bits like that and just focus on getting the basic paint jobs done inside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of those, I think you've seen me use them before, some wallpaper that, that I've printed off myself from, like old patterns that I've found on the internet, and then I've just sized it down. So I'm going to focus on papering the inside of the buildings and painting the inside of the buildings, and that'll be it for this week. Then in week 2, I'll probably switch and tackle the outside and get the basic painting done on the outside. And then finally, in the third episode, I can move on to look at all the finishing touches, like the little paint jobs on the windows, the rubble, the weathering, dressing the internals. Anyway, you've heard me talk enough, let's get them primed. So, as you can see, they've all been primed in black now, inside and out. Because what I'm going to start by doing is address the inside of these. Now, what I'm going to do, where I've got windows, I'm not going to go for anything too elaborate like wallpaper because, it's, you can do it and I have done it, but it's a lot easier to go for a painted finish on that. And then on some of your other walls, you can consider using the wallpaper. Now, obviously, on this one, I may not, because it's actually got, I don't know whether you can see that, but marks on the wall, which look quite effective. So that might just be a pure paint job on that one. But certainly, on the buildings that have not been battle damaged inside, I know you can't see down into that very well, but on the plain walls I will be adding some wallpaper. Now, to a lot of people this is a total waste of time. This is just one of my things, really. But I just think, when I'm looking through at the figures in the windows, seeing that wallpaper in the background of it just brings it that bit more to life. I think it's just the model inside of me, really. Probably stems back to having a model railway. I just like things to look the part. It really isn't necessary. It's the outside that counts. But I do try and do a rudimentary bit inside. And as you've seen before, add some decorations. Anyway, what I'm going to do, because I'm aware that this is going to be a fairly lengthy video, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crack on and paint some of the inside. And what I'll do is I'll bring you back at different stages to have a look at what I'm doing. So what I've done here is I've just captured a few pictures of me just pasting the first coat on. As you can see, it's very streaky. I'm not bothered by that. I am going to be giving it another coat. And I'm picking out, different colours for the insides. But the main thing is, I don't want it to look perfect because it's going to help with the, aging process and weathering. So as you can see at this stage, everything's looking a little bit rough. I will be giving these another coat, but this is not something, that I'm going to fret about, because at the end of the day the wallpaper is going to bring this to life, and then the overall colour inside will. And the important thing, well, for me, what I try to remember is, this is back in the 1940s, make, do and mend. They're not going down their local B&Q to paint their houses. They're just getting the paints that are available. And, so a lot of the colours were quite drab and plain. So that's the effect that I'm going for. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect condition because I'm not looking for them to look newly painted. Obviously, I will be dressing it back downwards as well afterwards by, weathering it a little bit. But initially, as you can see, I've just basically slapped on that first coat just to get the bold colour out there. And now what I'll do is I'll go over that, and then it's a question of letting it all dry, and then I can look at putting the paper onto the walls, and I'll bring you back when I'm at that stage. Right, so I've applied the second layer of the paint now. If I just bring these up for you to see, you see it looks a lot better, but I've still got streaks and that in there. Well, to be honest, that's exactly what I'm looking for, really, because obviously this is a damaged building. There's going to be a lot of water penetrating the building. I need to weather it. So the fact that it's not a perfect, pristine looking wall that's, completely, no streaks, nothing, it wouldn't look the part. So that, whereas it's not intentional, it really does help the process. On some of the ones that have got more protection, I've gone to the trouble of making it a little bit more intense on the colour and less streaking. And I've also done the inside of the roof with a slate colour. I've not decided what colour the roofs are all going to be yet, but it'll work for the inside. If it's not slate, it could be the roofing felt or whatever. But the main thing that I've tried to do is keep the colours dull, as I say, so it ties in with the period. Now, you might be asking yourself, what are all the sticks doing there? Well, while I'm waiting for these to dry, I thought what I'd do is I'd prime some coffee stirrers with some white. Again, I've done a light dusting. It's not perfect or pristine, but I don't want it to be. I want it to look weathered, used. And the idea of this is that, if I just grab one that's a little bit shorter, let's have a look. This one will do. If I bring this building around, what I want to do, in the ones that have got, individual floors, once I've applied the wallpaper and everything, I'm going to put them in as like skirting boards, just to give it another dimension. I don't, you you really don't have to do any of this, but these buildings are pretty special, so I thought I'd go the extra mile with them. And I thought I might as well have them looking right as I want them on the inside as well as the out. So I'm going to be cutting these to shape once I've done the wallpapering, and sticking those in as I say, as a skirting board. And I may even go to the trouble of dressing some of the walls up with pictures or something like that to give them a lived-in feel. Certainly I'm going to be looking at doing something about the floors at the same time as the wallpaper. So that's why you can see all these white sticks, basically. They're ready to use as skirting boards. As I say, they're not completely dry. But as soon as they are, I'll be moving over onto the wallpaper front, and with that in mind, I don't know whether you recall when I've done some others, I've been searching on the internet for basically old-fashioned wallpapers and textures that I can print off, and I've done them in, you know, like a set strip, and then I can cut these to shape, and the walls that are more plain without windows, you know, just to make it easy on myself, they're the ones I'm going to be papering. And then maybe even some of the floor finishes that I've copied, I might put in some of them. So that's what I'm going to be looking at next, as soon as I say, these are all dry. Because obviously it'll be easier if they have completely dry before I start applying paper, especially as I'm adding glue. So, right, I'll bring you back when the next part's ready, and we'll press on with the wallpapering. So now I can start cutting out the pieces of wallpaper that I want to use for each floor. And as you can see, I'm going to end up with these white strips from cutting them out. I'll use them to cut the paper skirting boards for the straight through buildings. So I've just cut a strip, and then basically what I do is I put it in to get the measurement, fold down the crease where I need it, and that's the first piece outlined. Obviously I've printed this on my printer, but that doesn't mean that I want to waste any of it, because obviously, you know, I've got plenty to go at. So I want to make sure I've got lots to choose from all the way through to the end of the project. Do try and cut it as straight as I possibly can, but again, you've got to bear in mind it's not just been wallpapered, so it's okay to have the odd knock and blemish. But I've not glued it in yet, but you can see I'm basically trying to pick out papers that will look okay with the coloured walls, and it'll help to break it up and give it a different look. And all I'm using to stick them in is very thin layer of PVA. I don't want to put too much on, because obviously I want it to, don't want it to ripple. And where it is, to be fair, it's not going to get knocked very much anyway, is it? So as long as it's a good glue all to the edges, you ain't gonna have any problem with it. So let's drop this first one in. Smooth it out. And there we have it. That's that one in place. I have got a slight edge on that one. I'm going to trim that off. I'm going to just peel it forward and trim it off. Because what you don't want is any edges, you know, like sticking out. Because if you do, they will get caught over time. Right, I'm going to press on and do a fair few of these now with different papers. And then I'll bring you back and have a look at them. One thing I have found, it's a lot easier with the paper if once you've cut it to size you actually paste the glue onto the wall itself and then add the paper. Goes in a lot easier, a lot quicker. As you can see, I'm getting through quite a few of these now. I'm trying to make them a bit varied, but trying to match the wallpaper I'm using with the colours inside. I've got one of the bottom buildings, and then I've got some of these, the through building for the Normandy one to do as well. And I'll bring you back when I'm doing the paper skirting boards in that one, because obviously they've got to be integral rather than these little coffee stirrers that I've made for some of the others. So I'll bring you back when I get to that stage. Now this bit with the through building is probably the trickiest. And you can see that. What I've done is I've put a row of the wallpaper, like I say, with the white band at the bottom to represent the skirting board. And I'm just in the process of sticking one on this side now that I've cut to shape. Obviously I put the floor in to take the measurements. It's the tricky thing is going to be lining up the skirting boards on the bit that's got no wallpaper, but that's the next part. Because the other thing with the bits that are going to come in and out of this, I've got to make sure that this sticks down and it's not going to get in the way and then, you know, tear a lot when I'm taking the floor in and out. So now if I put the floor in temporarily, you see that? You can see the skirting board along the bottom. I mean, it's never going to be easy to get it perfect. You know, you can see that that one looks a bit lower, but it gives a suggestion of it. And at the end of the day, you know, you're going to have fleeting glimpses of this, and it's still got to be, you know, slightly weathered and whatever as well. So, but the next bit is for me to cut a strip to go along the wall where there is no wallpaper, because it still needs that skirting board. So all I've got to do is cut a strip that's long enough that can, and then make sure it meets up at both ends. So that's my next bit. Right, I'll bring you back when I move to the next stage. Right, so the next stage is to put my flooring in. I've gone ahead and put the first one in. I've got a limited number of these, so I may have to print a few more out. But it just finishes it, well, it will finish it off once we've got those skirting boards in as well. Definitely gives it, you know, a more realistic feel. As I say, I wouldn't, you know, necessarily go to this trouble with every building, but certainly some of my 3D printed, you know, I think it's worth that extra effort just to bring it to life. And the good thing is you can actually see it through the windows as well. And that's where the realism kicks in, if you like, because, you know, if you were filming or taking photographs, you know, to record a battle that you've had, if there was troops here and you can see past it to wallpaper, it just really, you know, finishes it off, for me anyway. But it might be just me, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to press ahead and put floors in the ones that I can, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so I've put all the floors down now. As you can see, different variety of floorboards, like a carpet on that one. Different textures of cardboard. This one's going up market a bit. It's got a little parquet floor going on. But basically I'm just using, you know, similar to the wallpaper. It's just flooring patterns that I thought I could use, and then I've just shrunk them down, you know, by trial and error really when I'm printing them out, to get them down to the size. And once they have, I save it as a file so I can print off more when I need them. And what I've started doing now is putting in the skirting boards with the white sticks that are painted. Obviously, on the Cafe de Normandie, you know, because it's got the internal removable floors, I told you I've used white paper. I don't know whether you can see up there, but I've followed that round as an edge, so when the floors are in, it's got a skirting. But I only do it that way because the sticks would just get in the way of putting the plastic floor pieces in on these. But on these other ones, it's not an issue. The one thing I'm going to have to do with this, well, not have to, but want to, is cut myself a bit of MDF for a base. And that's why I've saved this bit of floorboarding to put on that when I've mounted it. So then, like, when you look through, you'll see the floorboards inside. I can't help thinking, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are watching and they're thinking, oh, what a lot of trouble to go to for things you're not going to see. I ain't really got a defence for that. It's just something I like doing. I suppose it's because I came to bolt action via modelling and crafting, as opposed to the other way around, if you know what I mean. I'm not just building terrain to go with my hobby of bolt action. I do bolt action to go with my hobby of crafting. Well, that's the best That's the best explanation that I can come out with. Other than I just like the look of it when it is done. I mean, obviously, at the moment, they still look fairly basic to me. But obviously, I'm dividing this little project into like 3 videos, because otherwise it'd be too long. So obviously in this first one I've just focused on getting the wallpapers in, getting the painting done inside, and getting the flooring, the skirting boards, everything in. And then next time obviously I'll be looking at decorating the outside of it, which will then come to the bit I enjoy the most. In the last programme I'll be, looking at weathering them and adding bits of furniture, or not much, just bits, just to dress it a little bit, because obviously I'll need plenty of room for the soldiers. But just doing bits to tweak it up a little notch, maybe even putting a picture or two on the wall or something like that. But that's for the last one. For this one, I just want to get to the stage where I've got all these skirting boards in place, and that's what I'm doing on this one at the moment. I mean, it's quite straightforward. I just basically put it in place, hold it with me fingers to the right place, clip it off, and then the good thing about these, they are so lightweight that I was thinking I might have to clamp them, but it's a good job in a way that I don't, because the clamps don't quite reach down into the bottom, and using bigger clamps, it'd be a bit of a faff, because it'd mean I'd have to stop working all the time because I couldn't get to it. But all I'm doing with these is just pressing them in place, holding it for a few seconds, and there it is. The only thing I've done is I've switched over on the paperwork, the flooring and the wallpapers. I've used PVA, just a standard PVA. But for these, I'm using this Gorilla wood glue, because obviously they have got a bit more weight to them, and I want it to make sure that they're not going to come out of place all the time. Right, well, I'll crack on and get these done. I've got quite a few to do, as you can see, and then we'll pull it together and we'll have a look at where we've got to. Right, so I thought I'd just take a few photographs so you could have a look inside how they're all looking. As you can see, I've been using different papers, different styles in each one, and I've got all the skirting boards in place now. They've all gone in fairly easily, really. I think the trickiest one was this one, getting the paper ones lined up, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, it looks quite effective when the floors are in place, so... And that's the main thing, really. Anyway, let's get this one wrapped up. Right, so I've fitted all the skirting boards now on all of the buildings. I've showed you some already, but that's another one. And the inside of that with its flooring. And basically, for now, for the insides, that's the main decorating done. So I'm going to wrap up this week, and in part 2, as I say, we'll start looking at the main thing, the outside, and decorating the outside. Looking beyond the next episode to the third and final part of this trilogy is the bit where I'm going to actually dress it up and do some finishing details inside and out, as well as normal weathering, because I guess that way you're going to see the majority of what I've done in different buildings. Right, I'll close it at that. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider subscribing and and giving me a thumbs up as well. And you know, if you feel if there's anything you want to ask about, just drop a comment. I always answer everybody, so any questions are welcome. And well, I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll see you again next week. Okay, bye.